Conrad says, this is a message to all working people, to all those who have an uncertain financial future. This message is to warn all of you who are not rich, all of you with uncertain financial futures, all of you who do not know where the money you're going to need to live on in the future is going to come from. This is a warning that extreme poverty is staring most of you right in the face. It will also show you a way that you can help all of us working people avoid that terrible future. This is about how 99% of us working people of today are going to find ourselves in the near future living our lives in poverty. Dirt poor, as they used to say. There's a powerful economic storm bearing down on us working people. Strong winds of lost jobs are going to destroy our ability to support ourselves and our families. Floods of part-time, minimum wage jobs and no jobs at all are going to wash away our ability to pay our mortgages or even be able to afford an apartment. More and more of us are going to find ourselves homeless. This storm is going to be never ending for us, and we are all going to find ourselves trying to live among millions of others just like ourselves in terrible poverty. Because the world is changing, and people who have no special skill or education are not going to be needed. Business owners, the rich Americans among us, in their pursuit for more and more profit, are replacing us with machines in their businesses. And there's just going to be way too many of us looking for a job, and there will be not be a job for us to find. My name is Conrad. I'm a senior citizen, as they call us older people today. In fact, I'm a very senior citizen. I know my name is a little different from the one most of you have, but I was born right here in the backwoods of the South, back when some country people still use horses and wagons to get around in, if you can believe that. And I've been around here most of my life trying to make a living just like you have. Let me give you a little background information on all this and why I'm doing this. When I was about 19, I went somewhere where I began to notice the terrible conditions many little kids, boys and girls, were having to live in. Kids were all over the place with no clothes, or at best, just rags. I mean boys and girls 8, 10, 12, and even 14 years old who were walking around in rags. Girls with just rags to cover themselves. Their stomachs sticking out like they were pregnant, but they weren't. They just had heavy infestations of worms. I started wondering why so many were having to suffer that way. You could tell they had little or no food. There were nothing but huts and shacks around, and there hardly was any clean drinking water. Then I began to wonder why so many people have to struggle all their lives just to get enough to eat and a shack to live in. I'm not just talking about little kids or people in other parts of the world. Children right here are suffering under those same kind of conditions today. And it was many, many years ago that I first saw those kids that I just mentioned. Right now, here in the United States, millions of people are having to get up every day. Well, actually, a lot of them have to work at night. And they go to some back-breaking job that pays them barely enough for them to survive, if they're lucky enough to have a job. Why is it that way? Here's something that you might not be thinking about or realizing. Our jobs have been slowly disappearing, and they're going to continue until we are all in a situation like those poor kids that I first noticed were. The economic situation here in the U.S. is slowly becoming like it is in many other countries. We are sinking down to the level of most of the rest of the world, where in every country there are a few rich people who own and control everything, and most of the rest of the people are living in shacks, and their kids are going around in rags with their bellies full of worms. What's happened to all the jobs here in the U.S., to all the ways a working person used to have to make a living? Well, first, big companies have taken over everything and run 99% of small town businesses out of business. And small town people have lost their jobs. Big companies have even taken over most farms, and the farmers' kids have had to move to the city and try to find work. Second, the big rich American companies that people here used to work for have moved their factories to countries in other parts of the world so that they can work the poor people there like slaves, and then send the things they make back here to sell. Also, they can make more and more profit. All those jobs in those manufacturing plants are gone. They're not coming back until we workers here are willing to work for less than the poor people over there are working for now. We working people have to wake up to the fact that most good paying jobs that the average person used to be able to get without some kind of special training or education are gone, and there will never again even be enough jobs of any kind for the millions of people who will need them. If a person expects to work and earn enough money to live on in the near future, that person is going to have some kind of specialized skill or some specialized educational degree. And most working parents are not going to have the huge amounts of money that it's going to take to send their kids to school, enough to get those specialized skills or education. And right now, even for many of those who do manage to get education, there's not even going to be enough jobs for them as well. Even today, many young people who are trying to get some kind of training or education are only burying themselves in debt to the student loan banks with the blessing of the United States government. Stop and think about these facts. There are already thousands and thousands of young people, our kids, who cannot find a job that offers them a future, and soon there will be millions of them. There will never again be very many jobs of any kind that only requires the person to be generally healthy and of average intelligence. Let me remind you of some of the jobs that used to be, some of the ways the average worker used to make a living that have gone or nearly gone forever. Let's start with the farm jobs. There are very few farm jobs as helpers on farms anymore. Big companies own all the farms, and they just use specialized crews to do the farming, move to place. There used to be jobs repairing farm tractors in small towns or working in welding shops. There used to be jobs in farm equipment sales, and there used to be drivers delivering fuel to farms. There used to be stock markets. There used to be animal food delivery drivers. There used to be small town grocery stores that offered jobs. There used to be small town car repair shops and truck repair shops where people worked as mechanics. And in the little towns and the cities that the railroads used to run through, well, there was jobs for people to work as laborers on the railroad tracks, maintaining the rails. There used to be railroad station agents in every job, in every town. There used to be crew members on freight trains. Now there's hardly one or two people. There even used to be jobs as telegraph operators on the railroad. Then in areas where there were timber, lumber production and so forth, there used to be sawmills all around, and jobs working in sawmills and the logging industry. There's not very many of those left anymore because big machines have taken the place of most of the people that used to work in the crews in the woods, cutting down trees and loading them and so forth. There used to be lots of jobs as pulp mill workers, but a lot of the pulp mills have closed down and moved to other countries. There used to be lots of jobs in steel mills in the northern part of the country. Most of those have gone out of business, and the steel is being made in other countries. Along the coast, there used to be jobs on fishing boats and shrimp boats. There used to be owners of shrimp boats and crewmen on their boats. There used to be lots of jobs in the construction industry, building houses and so forth. But now it's got where it's very difficult to get one of those jobs because so many people are trying. And if you do, you end up working 3 months and then out of work for a year and a half, which is no way. You have no steady income and no way to pay your rent or afford a house. The U.S. government is even allowing thousands of very smart people to come here from other countries and take up the high-paying jobs in the computer and electronics industry. There have been thousands of people from India, for example, who've come here, and now they are the ones who do the design and all the testing and so forth of all the new electronics things, like in Silicon Valley. I forgot to mention, there used to be a lot of jobs in the mills making thread and cloth and clothes and shoes and television sets and stoves and washing machines. There even used to be jobs pumping gas or running small town service stations. There used to be lots of jobs as waitresses and cooks in the small town cafes. Most of those have gone away. Here's another thing you might not have thought of. Fewer and fewer people own land, and every time an acre or any other size parcel of land is sold, it almost 100% of the time sells for a higher price than it did the time it was sold before. That means that all land is slowly being bought by the wealthier people among us. In other words, soon the rich will own all the land. We can't allow that to happen. We can't allow it to continue, because in the future there must be millions of people living in the rural areas who have enough acreage to farm, to grow gardens, and to have greenhouses and produce food for the local people, rather than it being shipped all over the country like it is today. Think about it. Businesses will never provide enough jobs for the millions of people who are going to need work. And farming, or some kind of agricultural business, will have to be the one that does that in the future. It has to be the main way that millions of people support themselves, because there never will be enough other type activities that will furnish enough useful work that enough people can do as their contribution toward the good of everyone else, and qualify for their share of all the things that an individual has to have on an ongoing basis to be able to lead a good life. Big businesses have taken over everything, and they're either using machines to replace workers or have closed their factories here and are importing everything from their cheap labor factories in foreign countries. All that means that millions of us are being pushed aside, just like we are so much trashed by those who own and control everything here in the United States. They're treating us that way because they don't need us anymore. Now, let's talk about the second part of this. This is about what we must do, what must be done by millions of us working people if we're going to avoid finding ourselves in the poorhouse, because the wealthy and the big businesses they own are going to put us there. You took the first step when you bought this DVD. I'm not looking to make money off these things. The money actually you paid for it, I'm going to share with the needy person who sold it to you. And most of the rest I'll use to spread my message every way I can think of. I will use a little of it to help support myself while I'm working on this thing. Now, I need you to take the second step. I need you to help me spread the word. Make this message your message and start helping other working people understand that there has to be a group effort by all of us if our kids are going to have a chance to live a decent life rather than one full of suffering. I am appealing to every one of you. If you're not rich, you're one of us. Be you black, white, Latin, that's Spanish speaking, Native American, or any other ethnic group. If you are a working person, I need you to join with me in this effort.